Has always been a regular of Adum Praise. And look, the whole event is 10 years. It's 10 years of great, exciting period of giving soulful music and worship and also praise to God. And this year, 10 solid gospel great artists are going to patronize our sets, and they're going to thrill and inspire all of us as patrons. The list will include Daughters of Glorious Jesus, Cindy Thompson, Prophet Kofi Abraham, and Obapa Christie. We also have Kweku Jesse, Francis Amo, Bethel Revival Choir, and others. And Bethel Choir, of course, is later on the show. We're passing through, and this weekend, now on Saturday, is when we're going to have the main event as well. But throughout the rest of the week, it's going to be just praise. Friday is going to be, and it's going to be a time at the Perez Dome on Friday, the 6th of September, where we're all going to worship God, praise Him, and give Him thanks for 10 fulfilling years of Adon Praise. Great, exciting period is going to be. Make sure that you log on to the channel, especially the show, throughout the rest of the week for some great highlights and renditions of some of the greatest songs of these artists who will be blazing the thrill this Friday. But we also told you about some of the exciting conversations we'll be having on the show. And we had appearing as a main guest speaker at an event for the St. Augustine's College, a man who also was a former dean of the law faculty of the GIMPA itself, and subsequently is a legal practitioner. And Ernest Abuchi held that the current system of education we have, especially at the senior high school level and even across board, encourages learning just rudely, and instead of students demonstrating creativity and understanding what they are taught. And that's a concern for him as well as many other educationists. So we're going to have from the Ghana National Education Campaign Coalition, Festus Longmote, and then also on the phone, having some great highlights with us through streaming live into the studio, Anis Hafa. He's a renowned educationist, has practiced decades educational administration and teaching in the United States of America, and doing some great work here in Ghana as well. Anis Hafa is going to join us live. It promises to be some exciting period. We'll also let you in on the conversation as we open the phone lines. But right now, let's go to Ernest Kofi Abotsi, the legal practitioner, but also speaking on the subject of education.
Teachers must be creative and innovative, and must inspire creativity in students. Unfortunately, our school systems have often been stifling in their teaching and learning, and academic conformity has been prized over rebellion. We have been taught to read some books and to reproduce what the book is saying. In fact, the current model of education, which is tested by the West African Exam Council, follows that model. That says, after being in school for so many years, we're going to test you across a period of 3 hours, and God be with you. That model tests the ability to remember. It tests memory and ignores creativity. In this regard, the future of education in Ghana occupies a foremost agenda in our national discourse. Yet Ghana's ranking and performances in global educational ratings have scored rather poorly in recent times. One report recently published places Ghana last on the bottom of 76 countries that were ranked. One reality is true. Whatever the names of our schools and whoever owns them, the argument can continue. But the truth remains that all may not be well with basic and secondary education, and some will argue university education in Ghana.
And we also know that we have over 450,000 students at the senior high school level. There's going to be a new intake this year as well. And subsequently, following the implementation of the free SHS policy, ultimately it will mean more young people, students, will be passing through the various senior high schools we have. But the subject of thought and the teaching practice becomes a subject of debate anytime it's raised. It's also a long-standing issue about the contribution of the output of these senior high schools and the level of education ultimately to the tertiary level, and whether that fits into our national development. And helping us do some great discussion on the subject is Festus Longmati. He is with the Ghana National Education Campaign Coalition, GNEC, as the programs coordinator. Festus, nice meeting you once again.
Nice meeting you too.
And you've done some great work within the period, working with Child Rights International and on the subject of education, assessing students, especially at the senior high school level. For you, as somebody who is an administrator, coordinates programming, having observed the last couple of decades, what would you say is the state of education, and whether you will agree with Mr. Ernest Abuchi?
I think for his submission, it will be good that we look at it and then look at it in the positive sense. And when that is done, it will help to improve upon whatever the system currently is. But I think that it is based on improving on what is already existing, that the Ministry of Education has decided to come out with a new curriculum, which is more learner-centered, where children are given the opportunity to come out with what they know about a subject or a topic. They are given the opportunity to come out with what they want to learn about the topic, and also giving the opportunity at the end of the lesson to answer questions, to find out whether their expectations have been met. And I think this approach basically solves the problem where we only take what is given to us by our teachers just for the sake of writing an exams.
Now, that level of assessment, and even the teaching mode in itself, that then will be corrected by the new curricula. But what had existed over the last, or all the decades since independence, have been this mode of thoughts. Now, that thought process have always been said to be fraught with having students who would have to be giving them and not contributing. If we have to do that, what role then have the teachers been playing in all this?
Yeah, I think basically we all went through that system where we have our teachers coming to give us, to impact in us the knowledge that they have acquired. And I would have no choice than just to accept what they give to us, and then probably reproduce it in an exams if I'm right. But then given the new curriculum, which is more, before then it is more of teacher-centered, okay, where the teacher has to impact all the knowledge that he thinks you need to have, and you don't have any choice than to just accept what the teacher has given to you, okay. But then looking at the new curriculum, I just mentioned, this is more learner-centered, okay. It is learner-centered, where the children are given the opportunity. In fact, I don't have much, and because I'm not a teacher, I can't say much into it. But with the little knowledge that I have, with regards to the new curriculum, you realize that the issue of learning, of just taking what the teacher has given you and then reproducing it in an examination has been, to some extent, has been resolved. In any case, we may identify some gaps, and the best we can do is to maybe see how best we can help in bridging those gaps. It is also important we commend government at least for making the effort to improve on what is already existing. At least the effort or the attempt to improve on it is something that is commendable. Going back to what I was saying, the current system talks about they have a term for a pedagogy term, know what and then learn, which means that where the children are put in a group. It's not like the situation where the teacher comes to stand in front of the class and then impact knowledge, but this time the teacher no more comes in as a teacher, but the teacher comes in as a facilitator.
So it's more focus group based.
It is more focus group based. So the children are put in a group, and where a child within the group is selected as a leader of the group, okay, and the children are given the opportunity as a group. If, assuming a teacher is coming to treat a particular topic, the children are given the opportunity as a group to come out with what they already know about that particular topic. They are given the opportunity to come out with a list of what they want to know. Aside what they already know, they are given the opportunity to come out with what they want to know about the topic. At the end of the lesson, they are given the opportunity to answer questions, to find out whether what they think or what they already know and what they want to know has actually been achieved. To me, that to some extent solves the problem where children have to just acquire the knowledge for the sake of going to write examination.
Well, we've also decided to let in the conversation an experienced teacher, works with or teaches at Presec Boys Legon, and Mr. Joseph Kofi Abotsi is here with us. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, my brother. How are you today?
I'm great. Did I pronounce your surname well?
Yes, that's correct.
And you were the second runner of the 2017 Best Teacher Awards countrywide.
Exactly.
Yeah, great. Now, you're familiar with what government intends to roll out by way of the new curriculum?
Yes, I do.
Great. Now, the intention was to, in many respects, according to the proponent of what government has been saying by way of policy, resolve all the issues, especially even raised recently by the former dean of the Gimpa Law School, lawyer Kofi Abotsi. In the first place, the current mode of teaching and how we intend to roll out this new system, how is that going to revolutionize education, so to speak, and resolve some of the issues that we tend to have with the current system?
Yeah, well, thank you very much for the opportunity, and good morning to your viewers and listeners. Any change that any institution wants to administer to an educational system towards a particular direction is always great. It's always welcome. But then, once we are taking decisions about an educational system, it should be based on some level of research. I've read about the policy changes, the introduction, but I've not read the research findings that were commissioned by the ministry, by any other institutions that warrant these changes, actually. Because if you want to make changes to an existing system based on some professors or somebody's personal experience, then as a nation, we will have problems. I don't know if you have come across any research findings of any institution about the current existing system, the default we have, the problems we have with it. And have we even tried solving those problems first to see whether it will work or not before we effect changes? I've not come across those findings earlier on before the changes are coming. So I have a problem a little in that direction.
Yeah.
That notwithstanding, yes, new changes, yes, we will come with some new directives. But what is the industry saying? What are the industrial workers saying?
Yeah.
What are the various branches under TUC saying about these things? Because they will be making use of the labor force from the system. What are they saying? What do they think about the old one? What are the new ones bringing on board? Before this introduction, what's the level of participation of the teachers who are going to implement these policies? Is it going to be a top-down thing as usual, instruction from the top, you just have to obey?
Yeah, and we know that they're starting from the basic level. There's been an existing literature on the rationale for us trying to do this new introduction, and that's why we even have to complement the conversation in the studio. So, a representative of the Ghana National Education Campaign Coalition, Festus Longbote, will have also a word on the subject. And you know the issue that Mr. Kofi Abotsi is raising. Your needed commentary will be?
Yeah, like he said, for now we don't have any research that has come out with.
Musa, please be on the line, please.
Yes, I'm listening.
Great.
Yeah, like he has said, we don't have any research that has really come out with all those guys. But then I think from experience, it is good that we actually conduct an in-depth research to come out with whatever before introducing the new curriculum. But then I think that the old curriculum has existed for a long time. The old method of teaching has existed for a long time, and based on the gaps that has been identified all over the years, that they have decided to come out with a current system, which I think that, in my view, helps to solve problems that was in existence as far as teaching and learning, and then the outcome of our education is concerned.
Now, per your experience, Mr. Abusa,
Yes.
If we have an open learning system which makes use of very practical examples and also involves great participation of the students, and even let's take at the senior high school level, because we know that this one is being rolled out at the basic level first up to junior high school. How do you think, for example, it will help in the teaching of maths and science?
Yeah, thank you. For again, let me go back a little. Before changes are done to the curriculum system, again, as a nation, we should know where we are going. What is our focus? Is the industry or is the liberals that we are following? We should identify those ones before we go ahead. But again, per your question, math and science, come to think of it today, there are schools that have been described as the best science schools in Ghana. But if you go to their labs, there are nothing there. Or they have very obsolete materials at those places. Math and science cannot be taught in the participatory manner in which I heard the other speakers speaking about, where students will be given assignments, people will make contributions and come and just talk and go. No, it won't work like that in the classroom. They need the practicals, they need the tools, they need teaching materials, they need visuals, they need projectors, they need a lot of things that will make the lessons more practical to them. It is not just ordinary conversation that make the things go down. So you see, a lot of our students finish secondary school, and when they get to the universities, in the medical schools, and the chemistry and the biology, their lab work becomes a problem. Many of the university lecturers have to take our students through basic lab practices to make them good enough. And so if we are going to even reduce that, what we have already, which is not even very effective, to oral, to participatory, to discussions, I don't think we'll make any serious headway. For science and math, I still believe that we rather need the tools. We need the practical materials. We need the drawings. We need the visuals to make those lessons more interesting. Because you cannot give one particular student one instrument to work with. No. It's the group that will need those instruments to work. And so for science and math, no, the participatory method that he just spoke about will not work in that area. Even think of the technicals and the vocational areas. No, we need the tools.
Yeah. I think all of you are speaking the same language. Indeed, if you take a look at the current curriculum that is that has been approved, of course, will be introduced from tomorrow, at least for private schools, and next week for public schools. It's the same thing. But based on your own experiences, what you're supposed to teach, and even now make it more practical, is it the absence of the materials, the resources, that is making it difficult, even in the existing system or the old system, that will even make this one, its implementation, even impossible for public schools? I see in the unavailability of the reagents, the tools, the cylinders, and all the things that, for example, for teaching and learning of science and maths that we have to use.
Yes, you have just spoken everything. That will make things very much difficult, because today, you see, I see biology teachers in my school going around plucking flowers and getting help to introduce things to the schools. But when you go to other environments that those things are not available, they have plastic designs of those same things that they use and make the lessons practical. The students see, they feel, and they enjoy it. Mathematics, they want to think about global math. The tools they will need to handle those things are not available. You have to go to the geography department and get one globe and use it. And even that one, you cannot cut it to show the student latitude, longitude, how the calculations are done. You can't do that. But in other environments, even in Ghana here, I know some professors have designed those mathematical tools and physics tools in their studios that they are selling. Teachers have to go and buy those things themselves and use in the classrooms. If government doesn't take interest in those things, acquiring those for the schools, and we want to go by the participatory method, as I said earlier on, no. Teaching will be difficult, and it will be back to the same old issues we have. Yes, new ideas will come in, but the problems we'll have will still be the same as what we have now.
Well, joining us in studio, of course, streaming in through the screens is Anis Hafa. Anis Hafa has had great experiences of teaching and also education administration in the United States of America for decades. He's been contributing meaningfully over the last couple of years since he decided to now settle back in Ghana and contribute to education. And Mr. Hafa, thank you for joining us. If we have to look at what is going to be introduced by way of the new curriculum, does it measure up averagely to some of the best standards in the world, you say? Did it also have your contribution?
Right. I've looked at the new curriculum, and it's acceptable in the sense that it meets international practices, some of the best practices that I've seen. But then the issues that are being raised on your radio this morning are legitimate. First of all, let's start with this. What we now have in the new framework is what we call the standards and competencies. For example, when we talk about critical thinking is not something that we do on a piece of paper. It has to translate into how we use our minds to solve problems. And the first instance that I'll use is this. Go to any of our public schools and see the situation in which our students are seated. I'm talking about the dust, where children sit in dust, where they eat in dusty conditions, and so on. What critical thinking does is that it's up to us to elevate our standards. And what it means simply is this. Whatever we do in textbooks have to be translated at the end of the day into something that's productive, that is meaningful, and we can see how our own standards of living are being uplifted. That is what critical thinking means. It's not something that you do on a piece of paper to pass an examination. And I will cite an instance of when I was in class 1, for example, in a village setting. One of the first things that we did was to learn to grow flowers around the school compound and engage in fundraising activities that will help to uplift the standards of the school. Now remember this. If you are growing flowers around your school, it involves botany. It involves biology. It involves photosynthesis. Any structure that is in a science textbook can be practiced right there at a site. And while that is going on, we can see the fruits of our labor. That was very important. And the idea is that whatever we learn at the school site especially in terms of cleanliness, is to pass it on to our daily lives when we go back to our homes. Good. These days, with digital technology, things are getting so much easier. So that if you go back into the new curriculum, for example, everything that we learn in the textbook can be traced easily on a smartphone. So that even without textbooks, we can get any information under the sun from the smartphones, and it makes teaching itself much easier. Now, the other issue is this. Who are the people who are going to do the teaching? It's very important. So that in the new teacher training colleges, for example, we make sure that teachers understand how we're going to develop methodology that is updated. Because a lot of teaching and learning materials that we use now, we can easily access them on the internet.
I guess that's why
and also even in terms of,
I guess that's why the new curricula is supposed to ensure that we do all that. Now, just be on stream, Mr. Anis Hafa. Mr. Busan, are you still on the line?
Yes, I'm here. I follow this argument very well.
Okay, okay. So now, Festus, what Mr. Anis Hafa is raising is what should be the ideal. It is what is the intent of the new curricula. It's what has been the concern and what should be as raised by Mr. Kofi Abotsi, okay? But what will be on the ground? We know that we have planned this, but even when we go onto the market in terms of the schools and what is really practical, the tools that will be needed to make, for example, what the Chinese are doing or the South Africans, etc., open learning, the practical things, they are able to do virtual learning and all that, are things we have put in a book, as in the curriculum. Do you think, based on the work you do, because you have oversight over education at the civil society level, do you think that we can practically translate all these quickly into the learning outcomes?
Yeah, like they have all said, I believe that they have all accepted the fact that the new curriculum addresses most of the problems that were already existing in our educational system. I think the problem has to do with resources. Government investing resources into promoting the effective implementation of the current curriculum. For instance, teachers were trained to be able to use the new curriculum in their teaching or in their facilitation in this case. But then you realize that there are a lot of gaps where maybe some teachers could not even attend the training for the whole training period. So in that case, there is a gap. Some teachers were unable to come, and I know that there has been instances where you have a KG teacher. You know, in the KG, for instance, you have a teacher, a regular teacher, and then you have an assistant. That some of the teachers who were unable to attend, assigned their assistants to represent them in those trainings. So in situations like that, you realize that there will still be gap. You understand? But then, in the absence of all that, with government also prioritizing the investment of resources into ensuring that it is actually delivered as expected, I believe that, like you have said, would end up achieving the kind of learning outcomes that we expect to achieve.
Now, Ms. Abosan, if we take the current states that you teach, for example, at the secondary school level at Presec. And Presec is one of the best, right? But even you still think there are gaps in. He was your master teacher. He's your master teacher.
He is my master teacher because I was there.
Okay, you were at Presec. Now, Musa Abusa, if we take a look at the current state of the way you're teaching at Presec, what Mr. Kofi Abotsi and Anis Hafa all are advocating is that we could have thinking students, that they will even be in a position to challenge you, even though you are the one who knows it. But they would also contribute with the practical issues. And if we want to improve that, what would that be beyond just providing the facilities?
I enjoyed Mr. Hanif's explanations, but again, we are in Africa, we are in Ghana. I know I have been involved in some projects done by Vodafone, by MTN Foundation, that seek to give open learning to students in other parts of the country. But even that, they still have challenges. They are even the service providers themselves in Ghana. They still have challenges. So I'm wondering how government intends to roll out this if you want to go by the internet method as spoken by Mr. Anis. It's an excellent idea. It makes things easier for all of us. I see that, yes, we want to create thinkers that will help us solve our problems. But to create thinkers, the only way I see will be to challenge them, because come to my research environment here, I tell you there are students here who think beyond what we are teaching in classrooms. They are able to do the things if we challenge them with a task. But then that task, as I said earlier on, will not be achieved through group discussions that easily. At the basic level, yes, maybe. But again, remember what the Chinese keep saying. If I feel, I always remember it. If I see, yes, somehow you might try to remember it. Then if I hear, easily you will forget. And that is how their teaching methods have been.
Yeah.
And when the students feel the practicality of the things, they always will remember. If they see, yes, they might try to remember. But if they don't see at all, they just hear, they will have problems in the future. If government really wants to achieve and create a thinkers, I think whatever the objective is, the practical material should be available for the students to feel. Internet will help. Internet will help a lot, because it's not everything that at our level of education we can develop as a nation and make available to the students to feel. We can always get them from the internet. Again, what's the level of availability of the internet facility in the whole of Ghana? We should remember that Ghana is not Accra and Kumasi and Takoradi and no. In Ghana, what's the level of availability of the internet facility? What's the speed at which just can? Because I tried doing few things here on my own, just on my phone. And it's funny that students are noticing that, oh, he's trying to download a picture and show to us, and it's taking minutes. Well, I hope the internet facilities are improved a little more to make the teaching and the concept we introduced now to be effective. If the internet system remains the way it is now, then Mr. Anis' ideas will still have problems.
Mr. Abusa, you are being practical, right? Not being pessimistic. This is the reality.
That's the truth.
Well, Mr. Anis Hafa, you know, we have the international schools, and I'm sure you work with many of these international schools, but you also want to bring what is some of the best standard elsewhere, as you've experienced in the US especially, down to the public level. But the truth is that is why people are paying huge amounts of dollars, if they have to convert the Ghana cedi to dollars or pounds to get British education or America curriculum-based education right here in our country. We can't compare the two, can we? Is it that we want to at least break even, get to an overage, or it's that we want to compete? Which one do you think it should be, and it is?
You know, we have to do both. One of the first things we have to accept is that this new curriculum framework addresses the issues that are also peculiar and are of concern to the private schools, especially the Cambridge Examination Board or to the International Baccalaureate. Two things that I will say. The first thing I will say is that we cannot assume that we're going to learn this new framework in a matter of a month or two. It's a continuous project. And I will tell you this, even at my age, I turned 72 in April. I'm studying now more than I've ever done before. Because it's easier through the internet facilities, YouTube, and everything else. But there are things we can do right away. If you look at the International Baccalaureate program, for example, there's a segment called CAS, Creativity, Activity, Service. And these are hands-on activities that help even schools in the villages. And what that means is this. What is it that we can do to add value to who we are so that we can extend those values to people who are less privileged than we are? If you look at the population, the young population in the lower primary, upper primary, and JHS, that is a battalion of a human potential. And everyone can be asked to do something. The system that we have now is really archaic. Because what we do is that during the lower primary, we are sitting behind desks. Upper primary, we are still sitting behind desks. Junior high school, we are still sitting behind desks. Senior high school, we are still sitting behind desks. And that's 12 years of a human being's life. Incapacitated. And then we go to university for another 4 years. Still sitting behind desks, copying notes. Making a total of 16 years. By the time we process a Ghanaian person through 16 years of inactivity, and we place them in civil service to make a difference, it's impossible. Because they've never worked a day in their lives. So what I'm saying is that something that Kweji Aggrey said in 1925. Don't tell me what you know. Show me what we can do. If we wait for everything to be perfect, we will never get there. Because things will never be perfect. But right as we speak, what is it that we can do with our own hands to at least begin to clean the schools where we are situated? That is the beginning of wisdom. We cannot sit and wait for others to do things for us. And the earlier we realize that critical thinking is to be used purposefully, to advance our own standards of living. That would be the highest definition of education as we have right now. Now, we are also talking about collaboration between teachers and students. This culture does not allow young people to express their opinions or to become responsible for what it is that they themselves must learn. The dependency on teachers in the third world countries like Ghana is too much. What we have to do is have what we call a shared responsibility, so that whatever we have to study is known through what we call the schemes of work or weekly forecast. That is known by everybody in the school. And collaboration means that we are dependent on everybody to use whatever resources that they can harness for the common good. Because we are in this together.
Your contribution to this, and we've had Mr. Anis Hafa, a renowned educationist as well. And Mr. Busan, if you take a critical observation of what Mr. Hafa is saying, we cannot have everything before we want to get there. But for you doing the practical teaching, how do you synchronize that, getting to almost the reality and what the intentions are?
In fact, Mr. Hafa had mentioned very excellent point that I totally agree with. It's a shared responsibility, actually. And I also agree that the teaching methods currently may not be the best for the world standard as we want to get it. But to get there, I don't think we should go wholesale. I don't believe we should go wholesale. Because if we identify some schools, we can quickly upgrade certain schools in the country. For instance, you could take, I'm not bragging, but I think we could take Presec as the best science school in Ghana, equip that school so that students who come here will have the opportunity to share ideas, to feel free, to learn at their own pace, and to develop ideas. In that case, everybody will focus. Everybody who is here for science knows what he's here for. We could develop 2 or 3 of such schools in the country. We could take some other schools, maybe Accra for business, develop that school well, equip it standardly, very highly, so that when students get there, they are learning about things that have to do with their area, using the internet very well. We could develop 2 or 3 of such schools in maybe every region for the arts, for the sciences, for the businesses, and for the vocational, as the visual arts and the home economics areas. We could develop such schools so that when parents are targeting theirs to go to the best school, once it's an art school, they will target the best art school.
Yeah.
Nobody will be rushing for the Wesley girls, the Achimotels, for the...
And Mr. Abusan, you know that in the advanced countries, what they do is add some of the latest means of education they call the artificial intelligence, adding coding, robotics, and all that, just to give students the right means of thinking, because then they use their brains, right?
Exactly.
And you're not saying that it should be a model school for a long time, like sometimes we have in Ghana. Rather, we should have years of cascading them over time to make sure that everybody then is like. Is that not what you're saying?
Exactly, my brother. Exactly.
Mr. Joseph Kofi Abotsi is a maths teacher at the Presec Boys School here at Legon in Accra. We've enjoyed that conversation. But moving on to this, you said this should be the launch pad for us to make sure that we get education even, at least closest to what we have in the more developed countries.
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, I believe that the other speakers also support, like I said, the current approach which is more of a learner-based or learner-centered.
There isn't issues
approach.
about how quickly we can roll out the resources to ensure.
Yeah, as from civil society point of view, and then as a member of the Ghana National Education Campaign Coalition, our interest is to promote quality education. It is not only about coming out with a policy or coming out with a curriculum and then leaving it there. We have to make sure that all it needs to get the curriculum well implemented is made available to all the duty bearers so that they can also effectively impact in our children, because our interest is the quality learning outcomes that we all want. And then because in the case of the new curriculum, for instance, when from the little knowledge I have, I realized that it focuses in helping children or students to acquire skills, competencies, and also help them to develop behavior, which I think is something that finally would help us in our developmental agenda. And then I also talked about the focus group kind of discussion that students will be engaging in during lessons. Such approach, for instance, would help students to be able to collaborate and communicate among themselves. It will help, like they have mentioned, in critical thinking, because the students themselves are going to be those to do the thinking. It's going to also help in their personal development, and it's also going to help them in leadership skills, because, you know, as a group, they have leaders who will be leading the group, and that to some extent is going to build them. So at the end of the day, if all this is impacted in the children from the beginning, I believe that would all end up getting the kind of learning outcomes that we are going to have, instead of having children who will only be prepared to go and write exams and pass. This, to me, will help in the holistic development of a student.
Well, thank you very much. And that's
so. You see this opportunity. I'll just once again use the opportunity to call on government to make sure that all resources that needs to be made available are actually made available for our teachers to be able to deliver. Thank you. Festus
Longbote is with the Ghana National Education Campaign Coalition, with that you've also enjoyed the conversation. We'll keep it running just to make sure that all these ideas that we have to improve education in our country is well implemented, and by way of the objectives, we meet them.